Hello, everybody. Welcome to CAKEPOPS, a series of digital check-ins with cake creators that we love and adore. Today's panel is the future of syndication, which is a very interesting topic to me, at least, and hopefully to you, because you're watching. We are going to start off with creator intros. Let's start with STEENZ.
Hello, my name is STEENZ. I am a cartoonist and editor and professor. I do the syndicated comic strip Heart of the City. You can get it in your local newspaper or gocomics.com. I also edit comics for all kinds of publishers like Mad Cave Studios, and I teach cartooning at Webster University in the fall.
Awesome. Olive?
Okay, I thought I was muted, but I'm not. Okay, I'm Olive. I am the cartoonist of Ray the Doe. It is syndicated by King, and you can see it on comicskingdom.com. That's kind of the extent of my cartooning work right now.
And Bianca.
I'm Bianca Xunise. I'm pretty sure many of you are wondering how to pronounce that, so it's Bianca Xunise. I do a lot of things. I have a lot of comics in a lot of different places, but for the sake of this panel, my syndicated comic Six Chicks is also on King Features. You can read it at comicskingdom.com, or you can ask your local newspaper to carry it. Bother them for me. I love being published in the paper because I make more money that way. And yeah, I do the Tuesday strip. It's me and five other people, which is why it's called Six Chicks. And yeah, I do Tuesdays and sometimes every second. I don't know. We split Sundays.
And sometimes why?
And sometimes why.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, all of you have such, I feel like, unique journeys into syndication because you each do a different part of it, I feel like. STEENZ taking over Heart of the City, Olive with Ray the Doe first being a webcomic and then becoming a syndicated strip, and Bianca doing 1 to 2 panel like either gags or satire, a lot of variation of original autobio content or autobio inspired. So I wanted each of you to kind of talk about your journey into getting into syndication, whether that be from your past reading it to now, and yeah.
Yeah, I think some of my earliest memories are grabbing the newspaper every single morning and being like, I need to read Cathy. It's been so funny because obviously, I was like a 7-year-old Black girl from Detroit, and I'm just like, Cathy, though, that shit is real. But after that, I mean, it still followed me. I remember my summers in high school was going to Borders and reading the like compendiums of Zits and Family Circle and Jumpstart, all the stuff that I was reading when I was in my adolescence. I was like, well, hey, now that I can read well, I can read the bigger books. I actually syndicated comics got me to learn how to read the word I don't know. I-U-N-N-O. I was like, I do know, but like that makes no sense with the context. I don't understand. But eventually I figured it out. So yeah, comics help me read. And after that though, I mean, I had always been like attached to like slice of life comics and wholesome comics like that. And I also really liked doing adaptations of things. So I did one for Encyclopedia Brown, which I have here. And I also would do, new designs of well-loved characters. It's just something I really enjoy doing, is recreating for a new audience, Mm-hmm. And I believe that is what made my editor, Sheena, recognize my work to take things that have already been done and to revamp it. And that's what happened with Heart of the City. Heart of the City was going on for about 20 years when Mark Satulli decided to step away from it. And because Andrews McMeel Syndication does own that property, they were like, well, we would like to continue it and have it done by, you know, a new creator, kind of in the vein of what they did with Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to recreate these characters, redraw them. I mean, I started off, you know, kind of duping Mark Satulli's style, and then they were like, no, you don't understand. You get to take it over. You can do whatever you want. And I was like, cool. But like anything I want.
Are y'all sure?
Yeah. I did not expect the amount of freedom that I was given on this project, considering, you know, it's a work for hire project. I don't own Heart of the City, but being able to put all of my everything into it, they're like, yeah, go for it. So yeah, I auditioned in like 4 different batches over like 2 months, which was a long time of auditioning. But eventually I got the gig, and here I am a year-ish later. And I've got, I think I hit my 400th strip in June. So
oh my gosh, that's wild. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can go. Similar to STEENZ, like I loved Cathy comics. In fact, I have a Cathy original. Let's see if I can get it while staying on camera and not knocking my digital camera down. Here we go. I have an original Cathy. Oops, it's upside down.
Oh my God.
Which I think is really cool. I had no idea that she drew so big. Because like my pea brain always thinks everything's drawn.
You draw size. Yeah.
And so yeah, this is really cool. Like you can see like her like some whiteout over things and all types of stuff. But this is great. And she's also like, she actually tones her comics like old school.
Yeah.
I thought that was digital.
I've seen that in person, and like it's absolutely gorgeous. Like the line consistency too.
Yeah.
Like there's so much control in her work.
This one's fairly new. I think this one's from 2007. And considering Cathy's been in the game since the 70s, I love those pictures of her where she looks like Joni Mitchell.
Yes.
Like looking like super cool with her long 70s hair. Like I draw comics with my plants and their macrame pots and stuff. But I love Cathy. I was really into Calvin and Hobbes because it was kind of sad, and anything that's like kind of bittersweet was what I was always drawn to. But like comics were just the language that my family spoke. I think, you know, my parents were like, as long as they're reading comics and they're staying out of trouble. And I was reading, and it kept me quiet. And I've heard other Black kids talk about this, where it was just kind of like, if you looked like you were studying, your parents would leave you alone. And that was kind of like they kind of like get me from like having to like do housework or like help my mom out. Was like, if I was in my room reading, she would open the door and be like, never mind, you're quiet, and leave me alone and go bother another one of my siblings. So that was my trick. But yeah, I love all the strips. I was into Baby Blues for a while. I even liked their short-lived TV series. I thought that was
it was good.
R.I.P. to that. But yeah, just all the strips. I mean, like my mom tells this story about when she was a little girl, she used to cut out the comic strips and roll them up and wrap them in a rubber band and give them to my grandpa, and then he would give her like 10 cents, and then she would go buy like Tootsie Rolls or whatever was popular in 1950. And so that's kind of like, it was always a language that we spoke, and it was always kind of like, this is a way to get you into reading. And my way of getting into the strip game myself was kind of strange. I did a Popeyes comic for them. It was Popeyes, or is it Popeye? Oh my gosh.
Popeye. It's just Popeye.
You know, the chicken. But yeah. I had to do they asked me to do a comic strip for Popeyes. Gosh, it was up there. It's like 75th to 90. I don't know. It's
I think it was 90th.
Yeah, it was like the 90th anniversary of Popeye. They asked a bunch of different artists to do a strip for them. And I did one starring Olive Oil, because I was like, who needs Popeye? I love Olive Oil. I love how anxious she is and just like, ah! That was like, I was really into that. And so yeah, I did like this great British Bake Off sort of spoof, but with the great spinach Bake Off, and she makes a delicious cake using spinach. And everybody loves it, especially Wimpy. And they like that started the relationship. And from there, kind of similar to STEENZ, like somebody was retiring out of Six Chicks, and they're like, you wanna join us? And I was like, sure. And yeah, I'm the first Black femme to join that group out of their 20 years of it being in syndication. So that's like really cool. And also like both me and STEENZ like are the second and the third black femmes to like be like in national syndication. So
yes,
like, what's going on here? High five. But yeah, it's been a journey, but I don't really know where my journey is gonna go from here. Like we've talked about different possibilities, because with Six Chicks it's not a forever gig. It's kind of like until it's only for like this so many years, and we can decide from there when the contract is if I want to keep doing it. But I love it. I mean, I love trolling my audience. I made a lot of noise when I came in there. They were kind of used to reading a certain style comic, and their audience, they have a lot of haters because you have, it originally had these 6 women writing this comic, and there's a lot of like grumpy old white men who are against that. And so adding some melon to that only made things worse. And I love it. And I love trolling them. And I love doing comics without a punchline, just so it exists. So it's art. But it's been fun. And I'm grateful to be here. And I'm grateful that like, because I like, no way. Like if you would have told me sitting in Borders reading manga that one day you would be doing this, I'd be like, what? No, I gotta go get like a real job.
Yeah,
it's been
real job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar experience of growing up reading newspaper comics, like watching cartoons. Just that was the only thing I was interested in. Like the idea of watching, like being into something that like was dramatic or just not cartoony was so like uninteresting to me. I was like, why? Really loved like Hagar the Horrible, Beetle Bailey. Really love Ziggy. Can't go wrong with Ziggy. I remember really liking Dilbert as a kid, which is really funny because I can't imagine knowing what was going on in that at all. Like they were talking about email, and I was just like, sure, whatever you say. This is supposed to be funny. But yeah, no. I got a message from T from King Features, T Phoner. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. And she was like, hey, just so you know, I'm doing the same thing that Bianca said, the 90th anniversary of Popeye thing this year. Do you want to do a comic for it? And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do a Popeye comic? Like, I'm a real cartoonist now. And from there, I did what I did for a while to get most of my job opportunities, which is tweet into the ether and hope someone notices. And I was just like, oh, I want to get syndicated. Who do I email? And then T reached back out to me and was like, hey, just send your thing to me directly and we can work it out from there. And then I sent them, oh yeah, I should say, in case anyone doesn't, I was working on a comic at the time called Ray the Doe. That was a web comic that I just posted directly to Twitter. And I started it in the beginning of 2018. So I was trying to get that syndicated. And so I sent them like 30 comics of the Ray the Doe webcomic.
Oh, wow.
And wrote them a cover letter and wrote some like some profiles of all the characters and like all this I had this whole like little packet for them. And then it was just kind of circulating in their office, it sounded like, for like a year or so. Because I remember I would hear back every couple months and just be like, yep, no, before it was here, but now it's here, but it needs to get to here to be approved. So it went to here, which then went there, which went back to there, then to there. Like, eventually, at some point in 2020, they said that I'm like officially digitally syndicated, because we're not in any newspapers yet. But yeah, then I started in June of 2020, and now rated as a syndicated comic, which is a dream come true.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
I wanted to ask y'all, because the schedule of syndicated comics, at least as a viewer, seems to be so consistent and so I want to say tense. It feels tense to me, at least. So I wanted to ask what kind of a day in the life is for a syndicated cartoonist.
So for me, because Heart of the City is like story-based and arc-based rather than individual gags, I do start by writing them like 3 months ahead of time. So like all of 2021 is finished being written currently. And what I'll do is I'll send 3 months at a time to my editor, Sheena, and I'll have these ideas in my head for a story. So like, for example, Hart joins Dean and Charlotte as they play D&D. And, you know, Hart knows nothing about D&D, and she is boisterous and constantly gets them off track and is being Hart.
Bless.
Yeah. And so what I did was I write it kind of in novel style, nothing like too beautiful or anything, just here's the entire story. You know, this is how they get her to start, this is how she is at the beginning, and then this is what happens, and then by the end they want her to join and she's like, no thanks, this takes up too much time. And so once I have that full story written out, then I start putting it into days: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then I have to figure out what I want to do for the Sunday. Do I also want it to follow along with that story? And if it does, it still needs to be self-contained on its own, because some newspapers only get Sundays, you know, so you don't want to send them a Sunday that's a part of a longer story and they're just like, what? So I try and do either Sundays that I have its own storyline, or I'll try and have it kind of match up in terms of subject matter to what's going on, but it can still be read as its own.
That's so interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. Sundays are hard. I honestly hate writing Sundays. You know? But once I have all of those written, then it's really just a matter of, oh, okay, what day is it today? It's Thursday, so I'm doing Friday and Saturday strips, which have already been written. I'm just pulling from what's already done. So 1 week I'll do like all the drafts of it, all the roughs of this is what this strip is going to look like, and then I have Sheena approve them, and then the following week I'll do the finals for them, you know, inking and shading and the text, and that's just kind of like how it goes throughout. And I just try and remind myself that I need to stay ahead of time when it comes to writing the stories, because writing takes so long. Like drawing takes a long time, but I can kind of zone out when I'm drawing. You know, especially if I know exactly what I'm drawing, it's just a matter of getting it done. But with writing, you like have to think.
Yeah, it's so much brain power to sit down and be like, okay, time to do the thing.
Yeah, it really, really is. So I'm very organized when it comes to my schedule, so that I know exactly what days I'm going to be devoting to writing storylines and what days I'm going to be devoting to doing Sundays and doing the strips. So if it's a good week, I'll finish the Sunday on Monday, and then I'll do Monday through Saturday from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. This way I have Friday and Saturday, because I also work on Saturdays. I'm a 6-day-a-week gal. I have a lot of jobs.
Oh, STEENZ.
I know. But I'm good. I make sure to turn off my computer by like 7 p.m. Like I have my evenings to myself.
That's good.
As well as Sundays. But Friday and Saturday are usually like less busy because I've already finished that week of strips. So I can use it to either relax or to do more work on other things. I mean, I'm in the middle of doing a graphic novel, a nonfiction graphic novel on tabletop role-playing games. So, organizing that schedule with my strip comics, with my editorial, with my friends saying, let's, do Vampire the Masquerade. I mean, I'm a busy gal.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's how I organize it. I everything is done ahead of time. Like right now, I'm drawing July 16th. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And also like goals, honestly, for me personally, to be that organized. That's incredible. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bianca, what's
I can't be that organized.
day in the life?
I used to be that organized when I was younger, and then I just like I like resisted and was like, I can't. And then I need some chaos in order for me to work, or I won't work. If it's like too organized, then I'm like, I lose like that art passion, and then I don't do my job. But for me, it's not as strenuous because I only have to do the one strip. I can't imagine, or only gotta do the one panel, and it's just usually whatever's on the top of my head. I have like a document of like one-liners. Whenever I think of another one, I'll like add it in there when I'm like, because when you have to like sit there and actually draw it, usually it's just like white noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read like an old joke and like hope it's still funny, or usually when I read it again, I'll be able to build off it and be like, oh, there was a start here. In fact, a lot of times the jokes that I think aren't that good, when I read it again later, I'm like, actually, there was something here. Let's expand on that. But I try to stay current because I think I'm also on a similar schedule. I literally just turned in I'm in July too. But it's only that Tuesday, or sometimes I have to turn in 2, but it's every Friday. I have to turn in my comic every Friday, but it's just the one panel. I try to do mine in like month batches where because I feel like I become funnier when I draw them all at once than the stop and go. I kind of have to like hone in all of my energy at one time, just focus on 6 chicks and make sure that it's solid. And then I'll work on my either independent projects or editorial projects. I've cut out a lot of editorial projects recently. When I was in my 20s, I burned myself out a lot more. I was working a full-time job, and then after work, I would come and work until 2, 3 in the morning, and then try to get some sleep, and then get up again and work. And I was working as a graphic designer, so I was working 8:30 to 8:30 sometimes midnight, because I was working for a really big company that does food services. So basically, I'm not going to say the company, but basically when you go to the stadiums and they feed you, all that stuff is from an outside company. And so I did all like the menus and all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of free food. I miss that part. But yeah, I had to kind of take a step back and see how it was killing me. I have epilepsy and a slur of mental illnesses, and so a lot of it goes in the brain, because epilepsy also affects the brain. And so I have a lot of things going on here, and it got to a point where I was like, am I gonna kill myself doing this? I mean, I'm only 33 now, and I would love to, like, the way that I get excited about seeing Chris Ware still, and he's twice my age. I want to be that. I want to be that type of person that's still in the game in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s until, like Linda Berry, like she's still doing this. Like, I want to keep doing this too. So I kind of had to, it's not a marathon, or what is it? It's not a race, it's a marathon.
Yeah, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon or whatever.
Yeah, and I had to like kind of slow down. I mean, it was definitely a big part of it was like, I gotta, you know, feed myself. And my department, my entire department got laid off in 2018. And I had to kind of like figure out like, okay, well, I've been, you know, planting a lot of seeds, and let's see if I can turn this around. And I was like, I'll give myself a year to do comics full time. And if it doesn't work out, then I'll go get another graphic design job. And it's 2021 and I haven't gotten back to a 9-to-5 job yet. And I hope I never have to. But yeah, I mean, like I love doing my strip, and it gives me a chance to either, the reason why I'm really passionate about it is it gives me a chance to kind of just write about whatever. When I was talking to T as well, they told me that I didn't have to, when they were like trying to woo me to work for them, because I was kind of like, hey, do I want to do this? They were like, you can write about whatever you want. And I was, you know, complaining on Twitter about how I kept getting pigeonholed to writing these stories about Black trauma. And when I started as a cartoonist, I wasn't even writing about that. I was writing really sort of relatable, #relatable comics for Hello Giggles about like, don't you hate it when your bed sheet falls off the bed while you're asleep? Oh, you know, yeah. And I wanted to, I was like, okay, I want to write something a little bit more deeper than this. And so I started to delve into heavier topics, but then everybody just wanted heavy topics out of me. And I was like, this is killing me. This is draining me to kind of have to exploit myself constantly for a couple of $100 and a couple of clicks. And then once people read it, they're done with it. But I've exposed myself for the general public. I was like, I need a break from this a little bit. And so T was like, you can be political if you want to in your comic. You can be funny. You don't have to be funny. You can talk about women's issues. You can talk about queer issues. You can talk about Black issues. I don't care. Whatever you want, you can do that. And, or if you just want to talk about your cat. And I talk about my cat a lot. It's kind of, this last year, it's kind of become a Garfield comic a little bit. Because
to be fair, Baby has such a personality.
Yeah, like I just started like, you know, leaving the house maybe once a week, but like before this month, it was just in my home. And I was like, I'm out of topics, unless we want to have some blast from the past comics from like the 90s, talk about my youth. And I was like, I don't want to do this. But last year I got a chance to talk about a lot of things that were going on. And I felt like I had a social responsibility to do so. Like my comic is reaching a demographic of people who aren't on social media, who aren't on Instagram, who aren't on Twitter. And I feel like, especially our generation kind of has this idea that we see everybody else tweeting this and posting articles and, you know, putting stuff in their stories, that it's reaching everyone, but it's not. It's only reaching this echo chamber of people who think like you. And I want to make sure that these ideas are getting beyond just my friends. Because I know my friends agree with me because they're my friends. I want to make sure these issues and these stories are reaching some of the, not even baby boomers, but what is it, the silent generation? I feel like the silent generation is a big newspaper reader. And so I wanted to make sure they saw what was up. And that caused some controversy of talking about these issues, which I'm incredibly proud of, to have shooken the table so hard that I've gotten banned out of certain newspapers out of California. I mean, that's like punk rock to me. So yeah, I'm stoked about it. And there's been so many like different opinion pieces. There's like people write like tabloids about me, about what's going on in my life. And that's funny. All because I talk about what's going on in this world and I refuse to ignore it. But I couldn't just have every comic be about my cat. I had to talk about these things. And yeah, I mean, it's been a ride. I mean, now, you know, that the same comic that caused all the controversy is hanging out at the Museum of Contemporary Art, and it's going to be in a show from tomorrow until October 3rd. If you're in the Chicago area and you want to go check it out, they've, you know, have all their safety precautions up, and it's good to go. And you can go look at that along with some of my other pieces. But yeah, I mean, like that's the reward of shaking the table, is you may not necessarily make a lot of friends in that, you know, you might make a few enemies, but the progress is made. And when you're on the right side of history, you know, the doors will open up for you. It's kind of scary and it can be harsh. And, you know, honestly, it took me a whole year to process that experience of going viral and having a lot of hate mail and having a lot of anger thrown at me. And this year I kind of feel like I've like let it go. And I'm ready to move on. But yeah, like though, you know, because T gave me this platform to be able to do this, I'm able to use that platform to speak my voice. And that's really what it comes down to. And at least until we can get more gatekeepers to look like us, yeah, it is up to the white people who are in those places of gatekeeping to open the door and allow us to come through and trust our creative instinct and not just think that we are, you know, I couldn't find them. Like, there's always like this, like, oh, you know, found the right artist for the job. And it's just like, you know,
where are they?
Yeah, where are they? We had to get, you know, Cheryl to draw this comic about Kwanzaa because we just couldn't find a Black artist that celebrated Kwanzaa. He's just like, come on.
Cheryl, not Cheryl.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're going to get more into that in a later question. That I'm going to ask a little later, but I definitely do want to talk about because I feel like overwhelmingly syndicated comics are controlled by white men. But Olive, I wanted to know a day in your life as a cartoonist,
Yeah. So I am not a cartoonist full time. I have a day job that's just unrelated. Hopefully, one day I will be working on comics full time. But yeah, so usually when I sit down to draw comics, it'll be on a day off, and I'll do a week at a time. So I'll just draw the 5 comics in a day, and I usually have. If it's a storyline that's 5 comics long for the week, I usually write it all in that day. Just because I usually do my best writing if in like story sequence of just kind of going like in just one quick flow.
Mm-hmm.
I found in the past if I try to like write them too far ahead of time, they're usually not good. And if it's not a storyline, if I'm just doing 5 gag comics unrelated to each other, I'll either like sit there and just, this is a very weird way to write jokes, but I'll literally just like sit in front of the Word document and just be like,
you gotta use the brain power.
And I'm just like, okay, aluminum can. And then I'll just like make a comic that like the pun is on the word aluminum can or something. Yeah. It is very meditative. Yeah. Yeah, when Ray the Doe was a webcomic, I used to just write and draw each comic like the day it came out or the day before it came out.
Wow.
So I would just be able to like be like, this comic is based on a tweet that went viral today that everyone made fun of. So I can't really do that anymore. But yeah, it is. I really enjoy writing 5 comics at a time. Like I just finished writing a nice little storyline about Ray going to Pride, and I'm really happy about that.
Aww.
And it was it's very fun to do. Like setup will be day 1, day 2 will be just an inconsequential joke that doesn't further the plot. Day 3 will further the plot but also have a joke. Day 4 will be like will further the plot till the end and also have a joke, and then Friday is kind of just like the last zinger.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome that like you're able to schedule out something that both progresses the story and combines like humor like that.
Mm-hmm. And I find that when I sit down to write, I'll write it in the Word document for the script, and then when I start putting the text boxes into the Photoshop, I find that I end up changing the wording, or I'll add another joke to it somehow. Mm-hmm. Very funny. I had a joke this week where it was just a very simple like A to B joke, But then when I put in the text things, I was like, hold on, I'm going to add a second joke. And then I had like a third joke and like a fourth joke and a fifth joke. And I was just like,
you're making a web.
Yeah, no, I really wasn't. I showed it to my roommate. I showed the comic to my roommate and they're like, this is too much. This is overwhelming. Like I need to digest this.
You galaxy brained them.
I really did. There's a whole novel worth of comic in 3 panels there.
Yeah, when you like finally actually start drawing it, it's like it's different because even when I'm writing them, sometimes it'll just be like, okay, this is the story. And then I'll break it into 3 or 4 panels. But because I write mine so ahead of time, oftentimes I'll go back and read through it and be like, this is what I'm drawing this week. What are you thinking? But then I'll make like a few changes and just like to make sure that the joke lands, or if I want it to be a completely different punchline at the very end, I'll switch the punchline. It's nice to be able to have that flexibility, even though the main story is already written, you know?
Mm-hmm. I like when I take a joke that was made for day 2 and like day 3 and I somehow put them into the same thing. And then I'm just like, all right, I just have a free day now. I can just make day 3 be completely inconsequential and just a joke that doesn't further it at all. I really love doing that.
Sometimes go ahead.
I was saying I sometimes I want to do like more of those. Like anytime I'm thinking about like heart, it's really all about, okay, well here's the larger story, and every strip goes into the larger story. And I really only do like single gag strips if there's like a break between the arcs. So like if sometimes I'll go like from one arc directly into another, and other times I'll like, if there's like a Friday or Saturday and I really want one of the comics to land on a Saturday, there'll be like empty spaces. And with those empty spaces, that's where I start thinking about, okay, what's a good one-off joke, you know?
Sometimes for me, I find that I'll like, when I have my document of punchlines, I'll either get ready to sit down and have to pull from that, and either realize that I was like, wow, you were really angry when you wrote this. This is like kind of scary, and maybe you should say this for your therapist. Or I'll realize that I like wrote the same version of the same joke 5 times, and I'm thinking like, this is 5 comics, so now I'll read it again and be like, this is the same joke in just 5 different ways. You can't do that, and then I gotta think of it again. But yeah, I definitely like write myself into a corner a lot where I'm like, another cat joke? Like,
I definitely struggled with that when I started syndication, because I used to do just 3 comics a week, and there'd be no like comic, like Monday would be about like a tweet someone made, and then Wednesday would be like a pun, and then Friday would be like a comic about Ray and how much he loves Mimi. But when I first started with syndication, I was like, okay, so Monday will be a comic about meditation, and then Tuesday will be a second joke about meditation. And then I learned, I'm like, oh no, I'm just doing the same joke twice, but worded differently. Okay. Like, I definitely struggled with that for a couple months.
Well, it's funny though, because I think that has to be a new thing. Like people being like, oh, well, this is the same joke twice. Maybe I won't do it. Because when I was researching for Heart of the City, and even when I was reading comics when I was younger, oftentimes it would tell the same joke many times.
Yeah.
Like there were some jokes in Heart of the City where I was like, I'm pretty sure this joke was used a year ago. Okay, and it's here again. Okay. And it's like, it kind of makes sense if you're working in a way where it's like a daily thing where you wake up and you're like, okay, what am I writing?
All right, it's time.
It's like it's easier for you to end up making the same joke multiple times, which is one of the reasons why I chose to make mine story focused. And if it's story focused, the chances of me getting something that doesn't land quite as well goes down, you know?
That's kind of how you get like that sitcom factor though, where people like kind of hope the same joke will show up again.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I remember as a kid, like my introduction to Seinfeld was like when it was reruns on syndication. So I never got to actually see it in order because it came out, I was like, what, in like the early 90s, I was probably like in kindergarten, I didn't care. But when I was in college, I like sat down and watched Seinfeld from start to end, and then started to understand that some of their gag phrases were jokes that they build upon over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff I like to see.
That helps you, like for me, like watching sitcoms helps me, or just watching things that aren't comics help me with my comics, because then I'm like, how do I translate this to a comic medium?
Yeah.
Then sometimes when I just stay in comics, then I just feel bad, and I'm like, oh, this was so smart. Why didn't I ever think of doing this in a comic? But if I see it in a movie, then I'm like, I'll use that in a comic.
Yeah, it's like activating different parts of your brain when you start looking at different media and then translating it into comics. I wanted to ask y'all, picture it's like 2030. We somehow stopped global warming. We're all okay. What would you like to see in the future of syndicated comics?
I want to see more variety in playing with the space that we have. We've got 6.42 inches by 2 inches, for a strip. And whether that's done in 4 panels or 3 panels or 2 panels, like, I feel like you can do even more with that. Just push it even further. And that's one of the things that I like that I brought to strip comics, is the fact that, in single issue comics and graphic novels, like, your pages can really get all over the place. You can really get creative with the space that you have. But when your space is smaller, you feel like your hands are a little more tied. So I hope to see more of breaking outside of those gutters. I do think the downside to that is when it comes to collection. I know that's one of the things that we ran into actually with collecting the first volume of Part of the City, is that because I don't use the same size panels in any of my strips, like, I don't at all. Like, they're all different because I just don't use numbers. I just eyeball it. Making sure that they all fit on the page in a 6x9 book is a little more of a challenge, Yeah. So, but I mean, I like that kind of challenge. Not for me. I don't want to solve the challenge.
For the book designer, they can solve it.
Exactly. But I like that sort of thing is being talked about and thought of, because I wouldn't want to have to switch to using the same 4 size, strips for every single thing, because it doesn't work for every single thing, You should have many more things to do with it. So that's what I like to see. I want to see more syndicated strips doing things that comic books are doing.
I would like to, we briefly talked about it before, but I would definitely like to see more variety in, like, the voices that are the cartoonists that are being given a voice, because, not to promote myself or whatever, but what I like about doing Ray the Doe is that it's a comic about being trans and gay, but it isn't really about that in the same way that, like, Dilbert isn't about being straight, or Garfield isn't about being straight. Like, it's just a comic where I talk about, that's just a relatable, like, slice of life comic, and it just happens to be about a trans woman. And I really would like more comics like that, because it just be, I think a lot of people don't realize, like, it shouldn't be novel to like, it should just be, you're just like I would just love to open the comic pages and just see it from, like, perspectives from all walks of life, because everyone's funny. Like, and, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of, like, people that are bigots, like, feel like the idea of, like, people who are not cis and straight and white, like, being given a comedic voice means that things will be less funny, but it's like, it's the opposite will become true, because, like, everyone is funny and everyone has different life experiences. So if we have more variety in the comics pages, there would be more variety in, like, the experiences that we see people make jokes about. And I think it would make everything more funny, and obviously more equitable and stuff. Not to say like it should only matter if things are funny.
I agree with both of those sentiments. Like, I would love to see how future generations are going to take the medium in ways that I couldn't even fathom, because I feel like, especially as a millennial, I watch Gen Z do things and I'm like, oh, I didn't have to keep banging my head against this wall. I could have just took a lateral step and walked through the path. But I was taught from generations before me that the only way to get through this is to bang my head until the wall came down. And I'm I'm just really curious to see like how other people are gonna approach the medium. And like, yeah, like, does it always have to be funny? Can it just exist as art? You know, can it just be shapes and colors? Like, where are we going with this? And also, yeah, like, in the same regard that, like, man, if 90%, like, I feel like that's still low, of syndicated comics are like cishet boomers. Like, I'm curious to see, you know, can we expand upon that? Because, you know, there's this idea that like, oh, we have more than one person of color, they're all going to tell the same story, right? Because that's kind of how the other side views all of our struggles as exactly the same. It's just a bunch of us just, right, I want a good health insurance. Like, they just kind of see us all having the same complaint, versus everybody views the world differently. No one views the world exactly the way you do. And life is inherently funny as it's cruel. And so that's funny. And just talking about life itself is where the comedy comes from. That's how we're able to heal as a people. That's how we're able to keep going. And yeah, I would love to see, like, I've never been that person that thought I could only be the only Black person in the room. Like, when STEENZ became the third film to be nationally syndicated, I think it was like a few days after me, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I didn't want to have to carry that title for the rest of my life. Like, let's keep going. Let's add more. Like, it's like sad that between us and Barbara Brandon Croft is like a 25-year gap, if not more, because I feel like her comic came out in the 90s, and I always think the 90s were 10 years ago. But like, it's like so much further than that. And then before her, it was Jackie Orms, who was drawing comics in the 40s. Like, let's go. Like, it's like, and none of our comics look the same. None of our comics look the same. Like, both me and, like, it's crazy. Like, both me and STEENZ are like alternative and Black. But if you were to give us a pile of clothes and said, come with the outfit, we would look totally different.
Absolutely.
I love that. And it's just, but everybody's just like, oh, but you're both alternative and have natural hair, so you must be the, no, we're not. And I love the conversation that STEENZ adds to the adds, and it's just like, I want it to keep going. I want to see more, like, just story. Like, let's just, I'm tired of talking about myself. I'm tired of what's going on in my life. I want to see what's going on in other people's lives. Yeah, I'm nosy as hell, but I also just think it's interesting. And I love Olive's approach to comics and how it's a fact. It doesn't have to be this plot point, you know, because, like, yeah, I do think about my Blackness, and I do think about my gender identity in it, and I think about it, but not like all day. Most of the time I think about it after somebody else points it out for me. Most of the time I'm thinking about Doritos or something.
Yes. Yes.
Let's talk about that.
I mean, those are the kinds of stories that I love. I mean, I honestly still to this day, my favorite comic that I've ever drawn is when my husband got the wrong toothpaste, and it caused us like existential dread for like a week. Neither of us wanted to like admit that we hated the toothpaste because it's like a first world problem, you know? And then like finally, like in the middle of the night, he's like, I hate this toothpaste. And I'm like, thank you. It was just like, there are so many like silly situations like that happen in all of our lives that I feel like if we have the opportunity to put those stories out there, you're just going to feel connected to people more, you know? Like, I'm sure there's like someone out there who's like excited that they can draw stories about being Black and punk after they saw Bianca's comics. There's somebody
Absolutely.
out there who's like, oh, it doesn't have to be about the struggle. It could just be about my life, you know? So,
Yeah, our existences are so much more than just the ways we've been traumatized.
yes, 100%.
And this is my last question, the final question.
Ooh.
Do you have any advice for people who are wanting to get into syndication?
Yeah, no.
STEENZ?
I can't help you. Goodbye. No, I have
STEENZ left.
Leave. There's like the aim door slam.
my work is done. Yeah, I have no idea because I don't even know how I got into it. You know, like to be honest, I've never even asked Sheena like, what made you pick me? I'm just assuming it's the work that I did, you know, because I debuted Encyclopedia Brown at XPX, and that's where she saw and met me for the first time. Apparently, I don't remember, but like, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what you need to pitch. I've been telling people when I did my auditions, like they're gonna ask you for like 2 weeks of story, like dailies and also a Sunday. But other than that, no clue. And I think that's a problem. You know, like you can go into Google and you can actually type in how do I pitch a graphic novel, and you will actually find answers. There won't be a lot of answers, but there will be some answers. And there's even like, you know, here are agents that represent graphic novels, and here are the steps it takes to put together a graphic novel. But I don't see that at all for syndicated comics. Like, I didn't know until 2020 how many syndications there were. I didn't know the difference between a syndication and a publisher. I didn't know that the publishing side of AMU is like almost a completely different section, but in the syndication side, you know?
Wow.
So like I'm working on the collection for Heart of the City. I'm working with publishing side of AMU, not syndication. And it's like all this stuff I'm learning from experience. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that no one quits their job, you know? Like graphic novels do not pay the bills, unfortunately, unless you have done a lot of them and you're getting royalties, but all of that takes time, you know? But with syndicated comics, like when I found out how much I was going to be getting, I was like, I can live off of this though. And they're like,
What, in comics?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would not have been able to, like I was freelance before I got the syndicated gig, not because I wanted to be freelance, but because I got let go. So like I ended up learning about all the other things that I could do to pay my bills, from pitch evaluations to class visits to teaching to, you know, all the other stuff that I do. But none of it was basically 100% comics, you know? It was like 50-50. And so now that it's majority comics, it's like, why would I leave? You know, I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I have so much freedom when it comes to what these stories are about. They don't take up like hours and hours and hours and hours of my day. I mean, I spend more time on side quest pages, my graphic novel, than I do on Heart of the City pages. So it's like, I have time, I have freedom, and I get paid a living wage. Why would I leave? And no one leaves. So there's not like a whole lot of onboarding. Like I had to kind of figure out what kind of gutter space. I had to figure out what size they're looking for. I had to figure out how to even make my comics work using Clip Studio versus what other cartoonists are using. So, and it's wild because syndicated comics is not new. It is one of the oldest, you know, comics industry. But because people don't leave it, and it's been the same couple hundred people for many, many years here in the States, it's like impossible to get a gig. So my recommendation is to find someone who did get in that way, like Olive, like find somebody who actually did it the way that people say you should do it. But also, I guess, cross your fingers that editors come across your work and want to give you a cushy job. That's all I got.
I will say, you know, in terms of any type of comic, it's really about being consistent. And that's one thing that they're going to look for, especially going into syndication, is, you know, the syndicate has so much power, but they're working with so many different publications worldwide. Newspapers, you know, sometimes these comics get published in magazines and so forth, that you got to be timely, you got to be able to create so much work that every week they can rely on you to bring you that work. And I always say, like, consistency is important because there's always going to be highs and lows in your career. And some days you're going to be getting a lot of applause, and some days it's going to be crickets. And if you're living for the applause, this is not the job to get into. I started drawing comics for myself because I needed a way to release some of the things that were going on in my head, and I just needed to give myself a voice because I always felt sort of silenced throughout my life. And comics gave me that platform, and I was satisfied just doing it for myself before I was encouraged to, like, oh, you should post these online. I mean, I started posting my comics on Blogspot, and I started a Blogspot and used to put them on there back in 2000s, in the early 2000s.
Ye olde Blogspot.
Yeah, and I mean, it really kind of came down to editors saw that I was consistent in doing my work. I was always posting things online, that when the job had opened up, they knew that I was somebody they could go to. It wasn't kind of like, oh yeah, syndication could be fun, maybe I'll try that, but you have no portfolio, you have nothing to show them. They're not gonna, it's not that you're not good, it's just that that's a big leap of faith for them to kind of, they got people breathing down their neck to make sure that if they take that risk on you, you're gonna make those marks, because it is a job. I mean, like, I know none of us dream of labor, but it's still a job. and you know, it's a commitment. It's a fun job. I mean, you're drawing comics. I mean, we're not working in a coal mine, so it's just like, you know, let's we're all sitting in a room full of, you know, comics and tchotchkes, like we're okay. And it's like, you know, like, just, you know, be realistic about it. But I feel like if it's something that you want to do, I don't know, it's just kind of like, it can come to you when it's really something that you want to do. Just sometimes just the universe opens up and that path opens for you, but you really just got to be consistent. And also, just one thing that's always helped my career is having a community, having friends that are in the industry, and like real friends, not just like, you know, hey, you got
this is my business friend.
Yeah. But like actual people that you have actual connections with, that I like their work and they like my work, and it goes back and forth. And then, you know, every once in a while, something comes by, I can't do it, or something comes by, one of my friends does, they can't do it, it gets slide over to you. Like, what is it? You know, STEENZ talks about she's not really sure how Sheena heard about her. I probably mentioned STEENZ to Sheena like 4,000 times. Like, I was like, you sure this is not a job for STEENZ? You sure? It's like, because I worked with Sheena before I ended up before Sheena could even offer me a comic through AMU, I got poached by King Comics, and they gave me a contract right away. I was like, sorry, Sheena, I gotta go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really just like, you know, having those relationships, having those connections with people. And the reason why I love the comics community is because, especially now, you know, it's so queer and it's so like diverse, and there's so many different voices, and I feel a connection between us. Like, we're kind of like linking up, and we're like, no,
yes,
like, sorry, white guy, like, you're cute and all, but like, we need a job too, and so we're gonna push us first. Like, I think that's important, and I love that we've kind of been lifting as we climb. It's a beautiful community to be a part of, especially when you meet the right people. And yeah, I mean, like, if it's something that you're really passionate about, I know that if you kind of just keep bothering them and keep emailing them, and you have a good series and you have a really good idea, that's like, one thing I always tell my students is, have it already drawn. Don't try to get them to imagine it. Not everybody visualizes the same way as you. Even if it's not drawn exactly the way you want it to look, just have something for them to look at. And A lot of comics, before they even reach the newspaper, they can either be on Go Comics or comicskingdom.com, and it can exist as a webcomic to build an audience. And that's a path to do it. There's build a website, make a webcomic. That's how Olive got in the game. Like, just like, build it, and they will come.
Just do it.
I mean, what you talked about with like community is like such a big part of what I always tell people whenever they're like, how do I get started in comics? And this is like not just syndicated comics, but like comics in general, or an art field, or anything that's creative, is instead of thinking about networking, think of it as building a community, because not only are you friends because of your shared interests in comics and other things, but when you have people that you care about, you try and push them and they'll try and push you. It's a two-way street. It's a give and take with friendship. And when you have that friendship, that is how people say, oh, well, who would be really good at this? Because I know that Bianca does specifically comics about XYZ. If you're looking for XYZ, I know that they're interested in that, and it may not even be like, maybe Bianca has never made a comic about how much they love barbecue. I don't know. But if we're like just chilling and we're talking about what's your favorite barbecue, and then you go on this diatribe about how much you love ribs, the next time some publisher is like, man, we really need a ribs comic. I'm like, I got you.
No, for real. Yeah.
But that's what it is. That's what it is.
It honestly, like, I'm trying to hold back tears because it just makes me so happy to y'all say that. Like, the comics as a community is so important, not just for connections and jobs and stuff like that, but so much for emotional fulfillment as a cartoonist. And I don't know, because
we all
makes my heart like 6 times bigger.
We all kind of think the same. Like, I have non-comics friends, but they also have a harder time that I'm like, I'm gonna disappear for like 6 weeks. I'll see you.
Yeah.
Like,
I need my recharge time.
Yeah, or just like, cause I gotta work, I gotta draw this stuff. Comics is a lonely job. And my comic friends always understand that, because then we're all like, I haven't seen a person in months, but it's like, but I know you get that. Like, versus like some people outside of this industry don't fully understand like our world. And I also feel like a lot of people assume that because of what we do, it's either easy because it looks cute or it's for children. And so they think that it's as simple as just holding a crayon and just doing I drew my comic. Versus like, no, like STEENZ and Olive are both building these stories and these arcs, and it's just like that takes time. Like I am just like doing a fart joke, but even then, like I still have to,
it's a fart joke
right.
story.
With a meaning, like you're like, oh wow, this fart joke's actually about like the conflict in the Middle East, like you get it. But it's just like there's a lot going on, and this community like really holds us together, because I feel like no one quite understands us like we speak the same language even without having to speak. And there's that comfort, at least for me, that I know that in my lowest, I know that my comics community is always there for me. And also because then we're gonna like emotionally vomit it out into our work.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like everybody kind of knows everybody's business, because we're like, it's a metaphor, and it's just like, what's it?
We know that metaphor though.
Yeah.
I love when I go to like not conventions, because I've never been to a convention, but like a table somewhere, and someone's like, oh, is this for children? And I'm just like, it looks like it is, but it's for 20-year-olds who have depression. Like, like I don't know how to. Yeah, no, make a webcomic.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
That is like what my first plan was for Archival Quality, which was my first book. We had the website set up. We like bought the domain. We had like 6 weeks of drawing already done, and we basically just had to hit publish. But when we were making it, that's when Oni Press were doing their open submissions. And so we were like, okay, well, the website is our thing, so we can hold off on that. And then if it gets picked up, great, we just won't do a website anymore. We'll just work on the book. But if it doesn't get picked up, great, we'll just hit publish on that website, because that sort of thing is, I mean, it wasn't super easy. I definitely asked a lot of people like, okay, what do I do? What is coding? I haven't coded since high school. Please help me. And, that a part of that came from the community as well. I didn't pay somebody to help me figure out how to get, what was the messaging system on webcomics, Discourse or something?
Discus,
yeah.
Discus.
Yeah. So I needed help getting that on there, and I could just easily be like, hey guys, how do you do this? Because I see that you have it on your comic, and people are incredibly happy to help, I mean, if someone, honestly, like, this is the reason why I don't take my email off of my website and why I leave my DMs open. Even though I have to deal with old white people telling me what they don't like about Heart of the City, it like does not like outweigh the value of a college student reaching out and being like, can I ask you some questions? I don't want to have to shut the door to their, opportunities because I don't want to get hate mail. I mean, I don't want to get hate mail. So if you guys can do anything about that, that would be great. But I also
Cake is on it.
I know. But you have to be open enough to like help people out, because in the future it comes around. It always comes around.
Yeah, the comics community is a lot like Olive Garden. When you're here, you're
oh my god. Go to shows.
That's my set.
When they open up again, go to shows when it's safe to go. That's a really great place to meet people. And we're all socially awkward, so don't worry about it. It's fine. Like, we're not even gonna notice that you're socially awkward, because we're gonna feed off each other. It'll be fine.
I will notice if you're socially awkward.
And I'm not socially awkward. I'm actually a social butterfly. So I will make you look very embarrassed if you meet me. How gracefully I maneuver through the conversation.
But yeah, I think those are really good like options for if you're just trying to get into any creative field, like
absolutely.
Community is really the foundation for a lot of people's success.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, everybody. Any last final thoughts, grievances, concerns, jokes? Where can people find you? Where can people support you?
Well, you can find me online on all of my social media. I'm Ohey STEENZ. That's OHEY STEENZ. Probably one of the only STEENZ out there. So if you find me, it's me. And also, you can read Heart of the City on gocomics.com or in your local newspaper, or whenever it comes out as a collection, go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up. And also keep an eye out for Side Quest, which comes out in either 23 or 24. Not totally sure. I'm still working on it. But if you like tabletop role-playing games and you want to know the history of them, that's that book. So, yeah.
You can find me at twitter.com/Olive Brinker. You can read Ray the Doe at comicskingdom.com. Please write to your local newspaper and ask for them to add Ray the Doe so I can make more money. And there's also patreon.com/Ray the Doe.
Actually, that's also a really good place to put a webcomic is on Patreon, because then you get paid for it.
Yeah.
We want you guys to get paid. But everything for me is Bianca Xunise, BiancaXunise.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, even Patreon // Bianca Xunise, XUNISE. And it's, just, my DMs are closed, unfortunately. sorry.
You get a lot of hate, though.
I get a
Yeah.
lot of requests just across the spectrum, from hey, how you doing to like go kill yourself. So it's just like I also am like, I know people are like, I'm a bad texter, but I really am. I'm one of those people who mentally respond, and I'll see something and I'll respond in my head and I'll put it down, and like something will happen over there and I'm so sorry.
I do the same exact thing, honestly. Like, I don't think
Email me. You can always email me if you have a question. I will likely to respond. It's also biancaxunise@gmail. Like literally just Bianca Xunise. Google Bianca Xunise, and you'll find all types of different career paths I've had in my life. And articles of things and things I used to believe and I don't anymore. I don't know. You can try to ruin my life. I don't know. But I'm just kidding. It's not. It's
nobody
like,
do that.
different outfits. It's just like, oh, look at this outfit. That's really all you'll find, because I used to do style blogging. But yeah, that's I don't know how to end this sentence.
Oh no, it's okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching Cake Pops. Our next Cake Pops after this is an interview with Neil Bordeaux about the comics community and comics distribution, which should be really, really fun, moderated by Chris Lopez. Thank you so much for joining. All right, we hope you have a lovely day after listening to this. Bye!
Bye, everybody!
Thank you so much for watching Cake Pops. CAKE is a volunteer-run nonprofit organization. Your tax-deductible support is vital to our financial stability and growth. If you'd like to learn more about CAKE or consider donating, you can do so at cakechicago.com.